Okay, so today what we're going to be discussing is the purpose of the functional medicine approach to seeing exactly what it is and why we use certain laboratory results. Today, we're going to focus on laboratory results and assessments. Our focus today is going to determine the link between inflammation, cellular health, and the way that we treat individuals for certain pathologies. So we are a musculoskeletal practice, and we focus on inflammation and joint repair and joint recovery. But one of the things we have linked and we understand clearly is that mobilization is not just the thing we do and treatment of pain. We have to find the cause and the root cause. So what we've learned here is that many of the causes that we do are determined to be cellular based, metabolic and physiological. So if we have physiological issues, we have to find the root cause of it. So in terms of the physiology, my goal here is to assess exactly what goes on with the patient and find exactly where we can actually begin the process of healing. Many times we have patients that have constant inflammatory basis. So today what we're going to do is we're going to be discussing what it is that's causing inflammation from 2 points of view, from the cellular components, from nutrients to nutrient supplements to, as well as gastric assessments, which influence the musculoskeletal system in some capacity. And in that we can kind of determine what's going on. I'm going to have Anna begin the process by discussing our use of the SpectraCell assessment labs. We have various labs that we use. We have a multitude of labs, but we end up liking certain types of lab procedures. And one that we do use is focused on cellular activity. And SpectraCell is one of the other ones that we use. We also look for GI assessments. So we're going to be talking about Genova's test that we particularly use. And she's going to be describing those particular things right now. So we also have Adriana, who's going to be talking a little bit about fitness and inflammation. We're also going to be talking about Amparo as well as faith. And we'll go from there. Okay. So Anna, go ahead.
Okay. So should I share my screen?
You can, as a matter of fact. So let me go do that right now. So as I do that, I'm going to make you let me see. I think it's called a co-host. Yes. And you are co-hosted. So knock it out, girl.
Okay, let me see if I can share my screen. I don't know. Okay, now I get it. Okay. So we're going to start by sharing my screen and talking a little bit more about the micronutrient SpectraCell test that we have here. So something that we need to know about how are we prescribing this test is that we correlate the signs and symptoms that we're seeing in our patients, and that's how we recommend the patients to go through these tests. So why am I prescribing a micronutrient SpectraCell laboratories test? Well, mostly patients who come with fatigue, they are dealing with maybe a lot of pain, or maybe they are feeling a little bit under the weather and they don't know what is going on because they already have done all the other tests, the metabolic tests, the lipid panel tests, and they still don't know what is going on. So of course, us as functional medicine providers, we try to go a little bit down and under the skin just to see what is going on. And as Dr. Jimenez already told us, we're mostly dealing with things that have to do with cellular issues, or better said, mitochondrial issues or metabolic symptomatology that it's going a little bit up because we are lacking of this specific vitamins, or we are dealing with micronutrient deficiency, and those work as cofactors. So we need to know what is the stance of this deficiency. So this is where the SpectraCell micronutrient test comes in handy. So where should we start? Well, let's start at the beginning. So the first thing that we're going to see in this sample is that we're going to see a presentation. And if we fast forward a little bit, I would like to talk a little bit about John Doe, who's 31 years old, and it's a male. So something that we will see at the beginning of this test is that it will give us like a quick run up of what is what is the suggested supplementation for this specific patient? And now we can see what are the abnormal ranges of those specific vitamins or macronutrients, or even ratios that this patient is missing, or he might be a little off on their ranges. So we can see right here that it gives us the suggested supplementation with the right numbers, and actually it kind of leads the way of how we're going to treat this patient depending on the micronutrient deficiencies. After these, we can clearly see the borderline deficiencies. And something that is really simple about this test, and this is why I like it so much, is that it makes it extremely easy to read or to explain to the patient, or even for patients to understand what is going on. So are you looking at this right here?
Now we got the right test. Now we got the sample test. Go ahead. So we can actually see the John Doe now.
Okay, so here's where I was starting with this after I started blabbing. But here we can see that we have John Doe, who's 31 years old. And here's what I was explaining to you earlier, that at the first or like the second page, we can see like this results at glance, and it will tell us exactly what is the suggested supplementation for this patient, depending on the different deficiencies that this test observed. So after this, we can see the borderline deficiencies.
I'm going to go back right there, because one of the things that we're looking at is that the bottom line is, what's the take home that we need to understand, right? So when you take such a detailed assessment, and you're going to see how elaborate this is, it's going to be quite a large amount of data.
A large. Yes.
Where the bottom line is, what do we do from this? How can we see where we have holes in our diet, and where are those nutrients? And right there, it gives us the functional deficiencies in a nutshell. And that nutshell is going to be able to give us a direct blast at trying to get your body's metabolism to work as it should be. Continue, hon.
Okay, so that is exactly what I was trying to say, and that it's very well put. And something else is that it will provide the patient with a simple tool to go back and see what are the principal takeaways from his or her treatment. So here they are. They are very simple and very obvious for them to see. Something else that I like about this test is that it's fairly simple to read, and something that we need to say is that, for example, we have this two example, which is the total antioxidant function, and we see that we have like a vertical graph with a black dot right here. So when the black dot is present, it means that the results are average, and maybe we don't need to work directly with that. But for example, right here in the total immune function, we can see that it has like a red spot, and we can see that there is a deficiency, or that our total immune function is not working properly. So, and we do not have an example for the white dot, but it means that the ranges are that the values are under the right range, and that's how we want like all of our different micronutrients or ratios to be in that kind of white dot, which means that it is strong. So you were telling before that we have like a very extensive test right here, and this is exactly what you meant, I guess. So you can see right here that the SpectraCell Laboratories test starts by describing the amount of vitamin B complex that it's present in this patient. So right here, we can see like all the different vitamin Bs, and we can see that this patient is specifically deficient in vitamin B1 and in vitamin B3, which marks the red spots right here. And of course, it has like a borderline amount or deficiency right here in vitamin B2. And we can go, I don't know if you want me to go like a little bit deeper in this, or go directly to the metabolic.
Let me share my screen, and I'm going to go back to you back and forth. So let me share my screen. Go ahead and stop sharing, and then I'm going to share my side, as I guess I can see everything. Let's see how it works. We're learning. Everyone's learning here in the world of the internet. Share screen. Can you guys see my screen or no? Not yet. Nope.
Not yet.
No.
Okay, there you
Not
go.
yet.
So we're going to share my screen and share sound. So there we are. We are sharing my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
All right. So what we're looking at in this particular situation, as we reassess each one of these points, it gives us a gradient. As Anna was mentioning here, we were looking at the white spots here, which are where you're stable, and areas where we want to look at. Okay, so these are areas we are interested in finding in this particular individual. Now, what we want to do is to have the body in the most optimal antioxidant state. Because oxidation is what causes damage in many of our cellular tissues. And it is the source of many pathologies, one of which is pain, inflammation, discomfort. That's how they present in my office many times. But there's a whole story behind that. And I can't tell you more often than not that I have people that have chronic issues with back pain and also have stomach issues. Anna was mentioning irritable bowel syndrome as one of the components, but we were also looking at their cellular activity. So this gives us a basic understanding. Now, it uses different types of graphs, some that are maybe horizontal based and some that are also graph based. What this all test, and we want to make sure we go through this briefly, and we will go back through each one of these tests later in a much more elaborate way. It also tells us a little bit about the great, amazing Krebs cycle, which is something that we learn in biophysiology. And we also see where in the cellular activity are we deficient in. Now, for those that understand the Krebs cycle, oxidative phosphorylation, or what they call, the glycolysis or gluconeogenesis, the glycolysis cycle begins with the Krebs cycle here. It begins anaerobic without oxygen, and it really doesn't need oxygen. But over here, when it enters the Krebs cycle, it uses oxygen. It's like the turbine. All this occurs in the mitochondria. What we are learning is that the mitochondria is linked to many of the pathologies, from inflammatory to neuropathies to diseases of the heart. And we need to understand that there is sometimes the symptom of pain and discomfort is the presenting symptom, but there are other dynamics that are elusive so that we can include other providers in the process. So as we look at that, what we can see here is that we have certain areas of pockets, whether it's copper, whether it's B2, whether it's B1, that the individual has deficiencies in. So when we look at that, we also look at a different system called the methylation system. The methylation tells us how the carbon chain system was working in the dynamics of the cellular, repair and the way our body works. So in those same areas where we were just talking about, where the vitamins and the supplements and the cofactors and the minerals, vitamins are very complex molecules. Cofactors are minerals, and they have to be working together. And if you don't have cofactors, such as certain minerals like magnesium or copper or different minerals, it just doesn't work well. The enzymes don't work well, and the processes that actually work our body just don't function like they should. So in order to get the body to work optimally, we need to know what's missing. Okay, and if you drive a car, you want to know it's brake fluid that's missing. Otherwise, you just drive around without brake fluid, and what happens? Well, you can imagine. So the whole idea is to understand where these micronutrients, these supplements, make a change, and that you can have some sort of understanding as to what's going on. This is important because if we don't explain where the problem comes from, we may be treating an individual with a musculoskeletal disorder of many joints, thinking that we can work mobility, but when we understand the problem may be more physiological, okay, and or in combination with physiological issues. So one of the things is we do these tests and we can figure out things. Now, this is particular one of the tests we do. So in review of that, we will also be able to, once we understand the options of the supplements that we have, we also will be able to give you recommendations on certain diets. Anna, you have a quite extensive dynamics when you explain about nutritional diets. What type of diets do we use to adjust patients, at least their intake with?
Their intake, well, first of all, we try to focus on working on the gut. So something that I like to do is to fully restore gut function. So I mostly start with a very simple diet, which I love. Is called the low FODMAPs diet. And what we do right there is that we try to take away all the inflammatory foods or irritable foods that could be inside of a person's diet and just take them away, supplement it with other types of food, and provide some sort of restorement of what is the gut health in that patient. And if there is something a little bit difficult for that patient, or it's dealing with a lot of more issues that the low FODMAP diet cannot treat, then I go ahead and continue with an elimination diet. But in order to do that, I need to know what is causing.
Anna, just kind of, so the elimination diet that we use is, and your dynamic direction is because it requires a much more deeper kind of discovery of what's causing the inflammation. So even the elimination diet is even more powerful.
Yes, but I feel that you need to know exactly what is going on in the patient's gut and what are the foods that are causing that reaction or that sensitivity. So we need deeper knowledge or deeper tests in order to know that and to prescribe that diet.
All right. So what kind of a test do you do? Now we use different sensitivity tests. And now that you mentioned that, do we do other tests? Okay.
Yeah. So smooth.
So smooth, huh? We actually do a gut sensitivity test. And here we have what we call is the GIFX test. Okay. Because a lot of people you'll see on commercials where they, just send your little, I guess we have to kind of be candid with it. We take a stool sample and we can evaluate a lot by the stool sample. So I don't know if you want to share your screen, but tell us a little bit about our approach, because as we discuss this, we want to be as basic as we can, because one of the things is when we deal with inflammation, we have to take into other areas of account, such as digestion, inflammation, gut microbes. One of the things I also tell people is our gut microbes are our friends. We cannot forget them. And many times we try to destroy them or create some sort of imbalance by the mechanisms or the treatments and the protocols that we use. We have to be very mindful that when we affect them, we have enormous effects throughout the body. So I know that you love using this, and we definitely do this a lot with our patients. Yeah. But tell me what your side of it is and your direction as you want to include in this.
Well, I feel that the SpectraCell micronutrient test and this test are connected, because if we don't have a complete gut health, we are not able to fully absorb all the different nutrients from our diet. So either it's something wrong with your gut health, or you're not fully introducing all the different micronutrients in your diet, or you're dealing with a huge injury that it's kind of depleting all the micronutrient pool of your body. So this actually, the comprehensive profile by GIFX by Genova actually help us to know a little bit more of what is going on in your body. And it actually provides a lot of information about different types of gastrointestinal diseases, exclusively talking or specifically talking about irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease. So this can provide us with a little bit of more information on that. And something else is that it is, once again, very easy to read. So in the first page of the sample report, we can see the results of what we are dealing with this patient even before going through all of the different results of this lab test. So something that we have used previously is the patient total commensal abundance, and it actually helps us to know what is the total amount, or how is the variation between the different microphilia is going on in that patient, so we can know if the patient has microbiome overgrowth, or if the patient is dealing with a little bit of deficiency. Anyway, it can give us like a whole guide on how to treat this patient, or what we are missing on that specific patient, and how to provide the patient with a little bit of more variety, and ultimately lead them to a better health, better well-being, better quality of life.
One of the things that we it's even just a few minutes ago, we had patients with IBS that have clearly made the connection between their gut and their inflammatory state. I can't tell you how many patients every hour the patients are making the connection. They're seeing that they have a chronic irritable stomach issue and their joints are in pain. They're inflamed. They have joint autoimmune diseases, auto joint discomforts. Those, though the scope of practice depends on what type of doctor you're working with. My goal here is to tell is that what we need to do is we need to figure out the cause of the chronic inflammation that's causing the discomfort. In this situation, many times, to digress a little bit, we use different techniques like exercise with irritable bowel syndrome. Now, there's irritable bowel syndrome C, which is constipation, and there's irritable bowel D, which is
diarrhea.
Diarrhea type of that. Most of us know irritable bowel is a swing between both, right? So, but some people have a deeper sense of D, or deeper sense or deeper situation with the C, which is the constipation or the diarrhea, vice versa. Each one of these, we need to figure out what the cause is. And our bacteria, if they're out of whack, or you have a small intestinal, dysbiosis or bacterial overgrowth, as we call it, or SIBO, in many times, or you have leaky gut, you may have a dynamics or a problem with the things you eat. For that, we can open up the forum of gluten sensitivities, and those kind of issues that we're going to be talking about in the future. But we want to at least begin the conversation, but understanding that we do the different tests that assess the cause and to see exactly what your body is speaking about. We can, as we look at these tests, we actually see the types of bacteria, and without getting too deep in here, we will tell you different types of bifidobacter and different types of phylum. Each phylum has its own purpose. Now, this may seem something that happened in biology, but we will discuss this with each individual patient based on that. Now, as she mentioned, commensal means good stuff. That's the stuff we need, commensal. So, we want the good stuff. We don't want the bad stuff. And we don't want the body to be in an imbalance. So what we need to do is understand that each person has its different ranges. So as our goal is to, with our team here and our providers and our healthcare providers that we work with, our goal is to come up with a solid solution for you in terms of coming up with the treatment protocol and the care plan that's appropriate. Now, one of the things that we do here is we actually do even interesting dynamic things like massage therapy and exercise. And this all plays into the treatment protocol. Now, I know that Amparo is an individual who she works with, sometimes working on people, and she works on visceral massages to help with the intestinal process by loosening that up. So we also work on the outside. Tell us your history, Amparo, of working with people, and what do they change when you start working on them physically? Have you ever noticed intestinal changes as you start working on? Tell us a little bit about your experience in that.
Actually, yes. Several times I've noticed from patients that their experiences, as I'm massaging them, they're like, I can feel my gut is moving. But I just ate, or I'm not hungry, but I can feel something happening there, or my stomach is growling. And I said, well, because it's all interconnected. So as I'm working on your muscles, there is something physiologically happening in your intestines, in your gut, because it's sensing that things are being moved. Toxins are being pressed back into the system to be drained out. And that's why, of course, I encourage them to make sure that they drink plenty of water so that they can flush all those toxins out. And then specifically, I've had patients or clients tell me, my stomach, I've heard about massage for the gut, and I said, okay, so then there's different techniques we can do. There's kneading, there's effleurage, tapotement with fingertips, where we move clockwise to encourage the motion of digestion. So that way the food or whatever is sometimes even stuck in there, been in there processing for quite a while, or stopped processing, and start to move accordingly to what their body naturally needs to do. And they can feel that, they can sense that. And I've had people come back with their feedback saying, you know what, I actually slept better. I feel better in the morning, and I'm not so foggy headed. When I was driving, I seemed to be more on task. When I was at work, even thinking, I was like a little bit more sharp, more clear. And they made that connection that the gut health and the massage on the different parts of their body, it all came together. I even had patients tell me that they're starting to dream different because of the gut health, or because of the things are moving. and they're even like, well, I can see my toes better, you know. So I've gotten a lot of good feedback and different kinds of feedback. So it's really a very powerful situation.
Well, Amparo, I got to tell you, I get the story every single day. I mean, literally, when you work on them, or when one of the therapists that we have here work on them, they describe it, in odd formats, like they unloaded, they totally released, and they call it detoxified, but they just cleaned out as soon as their body starts working and starts moving, the body dynamics. We have Adriana here, who's also, she's an expert in our exercise, in our home-based physiological exercise programs. And you notice things too when people start exercising, specifically on gut health and their overall metabolism. Tell me a little bit about what you have experienced with what's going on.
Yes, the first thing I wanted to add into this is that it's very interesting to know, a lot of people might ask themselves, what am I a candidate for all these tests? And I think that it's very important to know that a lot of people, 4 of every 5 people who walk out there are deficient in some kind of nutrition or some kind of vitamin or mineral. And then, of course, all of us can have gut problems, okay? And they're not manifesting like still, but they're still there. So these tests can be run on anybody who feels any discomfort, or even fatigue can be one of the symptoms that you can feel. So with that said, definitely the exercise does help a lot as part of the treatment that we do here, because we need to work on the overweight and, of course, the inflammation that comes from the fat, the body fat, and in the adipose tissues. So we have to reduce those so we can reduce inflammation. And that is very important. Also, the minerals and vitamins that we take, we burn as we do any functional and physiological process. So we do need them even to exercise, so we can reduce our symptoms of fatigue or tiredness or dizziness. So all those things come into play when we're talking of a whole holistic view of a person, talking about their nutrition, talking about the massage and everything that we do here in the therapy. And of course, adding the exercises into all this program and help them have a consistent and holistic growth in their well-being.
It's crazy, but you know what, with the exercise, the physiology, the treatment, the assessments that can be performed, we can get to the cause of the issues. My goal here today was to present only two laboratory assessments we have. We have Faith here that has had some clinical experience in the past and integrating some ideas. Tell us your understanding and what's been going on with what you're doing with the patients in terms of assessing specifically the associations, the coincidences, and the causation of issues that we're finding with patients that are presenting with clinical discomfort and pain. What are we noticing that they also have in terms of other presentations?
Absolutely. So if somebody comes in, we do their in-body assessment, then I go over it with them and we see that they're having inflammation. We'll see that they'll also frequently have nutrient deficiencies. So the average patient that comes in will have between 4 to 6 nutrients that they're deficient in. And so that will be seen through doing something like the SpectraCell test. And what makes it so unique is that it is biochemically individual. And so other tests similar to the SpectraCell will create ranges the average patient should have, but the SpectraCell is very specific to the patient, and it will tell us what their age is and how much vitamin B they should be taking, and what their illnesses are and how much vitamin D they should be taking. And then we can look at those and then really zero in on where they're experiencing that inflammation.
That's amazing stuff. It's fun, Anna, as you kind of bring us home here to close out the whole process here. As you look at the way our approach is, there really is, and from my understanding and my own personal clinical experience, there is no separating the understanding of inflammation as the cause of many diseases. Our search doesn't start there. We do different tests, whether it's cardiac heart lab tests or clinical Cleveland Heart Labs. We attest inflammation. We assess for or assay metabolic disorders, lipogenic profiles. We look for all these this kind of dysfunctional areas, then try to find the root cause. At that point, we come up with the ultimate way to fix people, which is find the appropriate treatment. But many times it's very much entwined with dietary changes. So let me ask you, Anna, specifically, when we start working with people, not only on the physical side of things, on the physical components, but the physiological components, how do we keep in track with them when we're doing dietary changes?
Well, first of all, we keep in track by doing a lot of consultations. So you will always be in contact with all of us person, and specifically if we're going through a lot of nutritional changes, I will be talking directly to the patient. It could be via email, it could be via our app. That could be something that we are working with as well with Coach Care. And mostly it's by working together. So, and another thing is that we can keep up by doing dietary diaries. We can keep up by doing that. And that will actually give a little bit more of awareness for the patient to see, like, am I really going through all of these changes? Am I really doing the correct things? Am I really eating the foods that my nutritionist is telling me to eat? So it is it's like like a teamwork between the healthcare professional and the patient. So we try to work together as a cellular item right
Well
there.
said. Well said. And you know what? This is exciting because people get to see exactly a little bit of the mindset as to our approach for things. And I got to thank you all for being part of this 30-minute little tidbit, because we can definitely go for many hours on each one of these things. And we will cut now the subject matters into very specific points. As we do that, each individual subject point will require quite detailed conversation. So instead of going detailed with each one, we wanted to go basic as to understanding the full gamut of what we're doing. So in terms of the long term, we're going to figure out what the issue is. We're going to find the right appropriate treatment, whether your inflammatory state is something that it falls within our scope. If it doesn't, we actually put it in the right scope, and we determine exactly what you need to do to get better, because there's nothing more than living life in a pain-free state. Also, what was not said was lifestyle changes. And we discussed lifestyle changes, emotional states, and the present state of our stresses that we're presently experiencing also with this COVID dynamics. So I look forward to going over those things with you guys. And I want to thank you very much for listening in, and look forward to next week. And on Tuesday, we'll be doing another podcast and we'll be presenting new topics. So thank you guys. Thank you all. Thank you, Amparo and Faith. And let me see, Adriana and Ana and Dr. J. Okay, so you guys have a good one. All right. So looking forward to talking to you guys next. Goodbye. God bless, and we'll keep on keeping in touch.
Bye.